Hello everyone and welcome. Today we'll be doing a 100 Transcendence S run. For Mind Crystals, I have Expanded Foundation, Potential Discovery, and Discount as just generically useful Mind Crystals that I run in most of my runs. And then I also have Acceleration, since S can stack it extremely quickly, even if I'm dropping kill streaks. Giant Slayer, and then Perennial. Giant Slayer is just something that's going to help with the boss fights, since the bosses in Transcendence get very tanky. And then normally I would be running Mixture Enhancement and Replenishment. I think they're the best source of healing by far, to the point of where I want to try and start playing without them. I think they're just allowing me to tank through boss fights and heal during them when I really shouldn't be able to. So I want to try running different healing effects and getting better at the boss fights themselves. Last time I ran Complement of Death, and it worked pretty well. This time I'm going to try out Perennial. I have tried out all these healing effects in the past, and I came to pretty much the same conclusion about Mixture Enhancement and Mixture Replenishment just being a mix of the percentage value that they give, and then the consistency of them compared to the other healing effects just makes them way stronger than other options, in my opinion. But it never hurts to go back and double-check them again later on. Plus, like I said, I want to get used to playing without them. So for Legacy Tactics, we're going to also try out a different one that I haven't used before, Orbiting Lightning Orb with Lightning Orb Shot, and then Cold Attack and Frostburst has always been a staple thing for S. It's always been extremely powerful on her. Since S does a lot of multi-hitting with her crest passives, it makes the Frost deal a lot of bonus damage, and then Frost Burst will be activated extremely often. Of course, the one downside of being on 100 Entropy is it's going to be a little bit harder to get into those passives. The Lightning Orb Shot isn't something I see being too useful overall. It'll mostly be more relevant in the early stages of the run. And this is one of the perfect things we want to find. I always recommend this potential for S. Whenever you spawn, or whenever you dash, you generate crests. That's basically what that one does. There's another universal enhancement that I really want to find, where it just says that more crests are generated as you attack. These two crests work together, so even the dashing crests will start hitting more often, and once you get the two of them combined, you can start completely DPSing just through pressing the dash button alone. It's actually kind of crazy how much damage just the dash crests can do on their own, especially when combined with something like frost attacks, I mean. Because the crests that are generated are counted as attacks, so they'll scale off of if you have like attack mind crystals, or if you have something like Frost Burst, then the crests will stack up the frost for you. But yeah, I've never really used the Lightning Orb Red effect that I'm using here, mostly just because the damage on it doesn't really scale up that well into the later parts of the run. And there's also just a lot better options for red effects on here. Mostly with the main option for red effect lightning orbs being the Thunderbolts. Because the Thunderbolts can also then go into stuff like Thunderbolt Light Spear, and even if you're not running with the Thunderbolt Light Spear with it, the Thunderbolts themselves just end up being a lot more useful than the other types of red effects for lightning orbs, such as the fire ones here, or the shadow ones. One of the things that makes the Thunderbolt red effect just so powerful even on its own is the fact that Thunderbolts will get spawned for each enemy you hit. So if you're walking into just like a stack of enemies, you're going to be summoning multiple Thunderbolts. Whereas all of the other red effects for lightning orbs don't have any benefit for hitting more than one target. The Thunderbolt one is just kind of better by design, unfortunately. The other two effects for the lightning orbs would need to have something more special of their own to make them stand out, and right now they're both pretty much just extra damage. So you just kind of end up picking the one that does the most damage, obviously. Especially when the other option, being Thunderbolts, has more utility options with it too, to scale into other red effects and stuff. But that's not something I need to go too much into this run. And wow, we are very lucky this run. This is the other potential that I was talking about. You always want to pick it up, no matter what type of run you're doing with S. It kind of defines her whole character, almost. Like, she does have other unique builds she can go into, but having the additional crest hits is always going to be something that's, like, a staple of her mechanics and her playstyle. Even if you're going a full skill build, you would still want the additional crests to deal with the regular enemies and deal DPS while you don't have MP. SP's skill's also not bad to see early on. We could look for Blade here. That's not a bad option for rending. But yeah, not only do the crest upgrades, where they hit more often, help out with just her general damage output, it also helps a lot for keeping the normal enemies in hit stun if you're not just pretty much one-shotting them outright, which ends up happening a lot with regular enemies. So the only other thing we really need now in terms of potential is Triple Dash. If we don't get that, then the run still gets a lot more sketchy, especially as it comes to the later bosses. But aside from that, we shouldn't have any problems with DPS throughout the rest of the run. We have the Frost on our tactics, and then we have the two potentials that we really need. So mostly I just want to look for Triple Dash now. This is also a very good just general option to pick up anytime on S. Especially if you don't have a good way to deal either DPS or AoE damage for the normal rooms early on. This can clear out the normal rooms very easily. So when it comes to shops in high entropy where stuff is hidden, the main two slots you want to look out for are these two. And you want to look out for stuff that are 150 cost or 15 if you have the... Actually, no, turning up the cost doesn't actually mess with these slots, which is weird. It doesn't affect the price of buffs either. Turning up the cost in entropy only affects these two slots. But anyways, this slot will always be a buff, and it will always cost 50. These two slots can be HP upgrades, MP upgrades, they can be potentials, they can also be a debuff removal, but that's not quite as common. And then these two slots will always be a debuff removal, an HP heal, or a mixture. So mostly what you want are 15 or 150, depending on if they're on sale, because that will be your potentials. If it's 150, it could also be a HP or an MP increase, which aren't too bad. You don't want to see those as often as you want to see potentials. I guess it also depends on your playstyle. Some people might like stacking HP more, and some people might not. The way that I generally tend to focus the most on is buying potentials. Because every time you buy a potential, you get a 20% damage increase to your overall character damage. It's something that if you buy a lot of potentials throughout the run, or get them through spaces, your damage will start to scale up very high by the end of the run, which is something that is very much so needed on Transcendence difficulty runs. The bosses are going to end up getting very tanky by the end of the run. I am burning through all of my refreshes very quickly at this point, but I also don't really care too much, since I have the main DPS potentials that I need already. Like I said before, the only thing I need at this point is going to be the triple dash. So there's a couple of preset rules that you can look out for to help out with some of this hidden space stuff. One of the preset rules is that at stage 2, 3, and 4, the top option, sometimes it'll be the only option, sometimes there'll be multiple, but the first option will always be something between Trial, Black Market, and Covenant. The order that those three show up is random, but they always show up on the first stage selection of stages 2, 3, and 4. The only other strict rule I know is that the stage before the boss fight, which will be stage 8 on the hard mode difficulty, is the first selection will always be a shop. So you can always save your money until right at the end. And if you're on high entropy where you have the 3 shop refreshes, I think it's generally better to just save your money for the end. Unless you really don't have other good options for other selections. So for S gameplay itself, there's really nothing too complicated that I can talk about for her right now. Most of it is going to be in getting the right potentials, getting the potentials where crests can hit more often, and your dashing can also spawn crests. After that, the crests themselves are kind of just so generically good that you can go into different playstyles of what attacks you want to use. You can even just, by the time you get triple dash on her, you can even just stop pressing the attack button entirely and just DPS purely through the crests themselves. But if you can get to the point of where you're mixing together her attacks and her dashes, then you're going to get the most DPS out of her. It's something that's kind of hard to explain. I don't really care about any of these options too much, so I will probably just pick up Dashing Shadow. Dashing Shadow actually has a unique hidden interaction with S herself. Also, I think I am... Going the advanced battle here is tempting, but I would rather guarantee the potential space. Triple dash is just way too important to not risk not having by the end of the run. After you have gotten the crest upgrades for S, there's a couple of different attacking tools you can look into that I like using. One of them is the up attacks. It's good for... It'll get invincibility eventually on it, which will... Invincibility tools are always a strong option to have in this game. And then also, being able to combo enemies in the air is pretty beneficial for S. You don't necessarily even need the knock-up to do it. You can always just do low-to-the-ground attacks like that. And then especially on bosses that are tall themselves, you don't need the air attack thing either. But it does help, especially once you get the invincibility. One thing that will help with S is that her air attacks are much faster than her grounded attacks. So if you can get used to fighting in the air with her, you'll be a little bit safer and you'll do a lot more damage output that way. Especially once she starts getting the air attack reset potentials. Which I probably should have taken earlier when I saw them, but I wanted to hard reroll for the triple dashes instead, since I already had the main DPS options. But I think thinking back on it now, it probably would have been a better idea just to take the air resets. Otherwise, if you don't want to mess around with some of the air attacks shenanigans with the resets and stuff, Gawain is also... Oh, I do have the air attack resets. I guess I just didn't realize I picked those up somewhere. It's probably while I was talking. I might actually go ahead and remove debuffs here. I don't remove them too often, but I don't like having MP recovery down as a debuff. But yeah, if you don't want to do the air attack reset stuff with S, if you want to play either just a different playstyle in general, or a more grounded playstyle, you can do... Gawain builds end up being very strong, which is her up plus action input. It's this move right here, where she does the plunging dash move. It doesn't start out too powerful at first, but once you get all 4 upgrades for it, it gets a hidden effect where it deals a lot more damage than normal. You can start hitting up to like 10k with it each time if you have enough potentials by the end of the run. It also becomes very safe because you can also unlock invincibility for it. And then by default it does have some dodge frames as well. So it just ends up being a very well-rounded tool between safety and high damage output. 125 here is going to be a tactic ascension, so if you really wanted that, you could know it was there. But I don't really ever bother with them. I really don't have money here. I'm gonna refresh anyways, just for the discount mine crystal. Otherwise, I wouldn't be refreshing there. I still am lacking in the triple dash potential, which is a little bit annoying, but since I have Gawain, which is the up plus action input, I can use that as a mobility tool as well. It's a very good just all-purpose tool. If you get it and you don't have all the potentials, it's still good for the dodge frames on it, and it's good for the mobility. And then if you do manage to get it fully upgraded, it turns into a very good damaging tool as well. See right there, I was able to use it as a dodge, and use it as an extra just replacement for the dash button, since I don't have the triple dash. And speaking of, now we should be pretty much good to go. As long as I don't do anything too stupid during any of the rest of the run. I forgot to mention it before, but I'm not going to go into any Covenants trials or black markets. Ooh, that is not what I want to see. Basically any other space I would accept, except for a Toxin space. Toxin as an entire tree is just not very good right now. Hopefully, with the announced tactic rework that'll be coming up in the future, it'll have more usage. But yeah, back to what I was saying before. I don't like going into Covenants and black markets and stuff during the commentary videos, since I want to show off what the character and the tactics themselves can do. I don't want to have the run be one because of really broken black market or Covenant stuff, because both of them can really break the game. If I was just doing casual runs, I wouldn't mind, but when my goal is to like teach people about the characters and the tactics and stuff, having a really broken effect on the run like that just kind of... it makes the run a lot less replicable by other people, and it doesn't really show off the true strength of the character themselves or the tactics themselves. There's a lot of stuff in black markets and Covenants that can just straight up carry the run. I've never bothered with her down attack or hold attack options too often. In this case, I just kind of have to take them. I don't think they're necessarily bad. The hold attacks can do quite a lot of damage. It's just with her aerial attack options being so fast, and even her dashes just being a lot quicker, those usually end up being more the go-to options in high entropy, where you can't really stop to charge attacks too often. The regular enemies might not be too difficult in terms of... I think their HP is way too low, which is a big thing. If you know how to build your character and you know how to build your tactics, then HP-wise, the normal enemies aren't ever a threat. But if you do ever end up taking like a big chunk of damage from getting hit by multiple enemies at once, or getting hit by multiple enemies back to back, their damage will stack up very quickly. Which is where I end up running into a lot of problems with, depending on what character I'm playing. And it makes one of the more difficult parts of really high entropy stuff, where you can take chip damage, and it's hard to heal the chip damage back unless you take some kind of mind crystal for it. Because normally you get a full heal after every boss fight you do, so even if you take a little bit of damage here and there throughout the stages, you can always heal it back at the end of the stage, or the end of the area. I need to figure out more... I need to figure out better terminology for what those two things are. I guess each individual area, like where you go through the section with a different background and then fight the boss. Like, every time you fight a different boss, it would probably be considered going to a different stage, because that's how it's listed at the top left of the screen. I need to sell this, actually. I don't want to switch this out. That would not be worth it. And then I'm waiting on a specific upgrade called Rending Impact. That's pretty much the only rend thing that's worth taking, unfortunately. The other upgrades for rend don't really apply enough to bosses, and on some bosses they don't even move at all. Some bosses that do move a lot also just don't end up stacking up enough rend hits for it to be worth it as a damage tool. When you're taking rend, you're usually taking it for the rending impact, which is a damage increase to not only your character, but also the tactics. Which is a unique thing because most of the damage increases in this game don't affect tactic damage. Rending Impact and Ragna's second legacy skill are the only two things that I know of that do affect tactic damage, but I haven't checked literally everything in the game yet either. So again, when it comes to shops, what I'm looking for personally is these two slots, and if it's either 15 or 150, because that's where the potentials are going to be. And even though I already have all of the... Oh, here we go, by the way, I was talking about this earlier. Once you get all three potentials for Gawain, you unlock one of the hidden effects for it, where plunging on the ground deals much more damage. And when it says much more, it really means it. But yeah, what I was saying about potentials is that even though I do have all of my DPS options that I need, there is a 20% damage increase that you get for each potential that's shown up at the top right here. Do not worry about the parts that say, like, I'm getting 40% damage from the attack. It's just showing that I'm getting 40% out of the total for that. It's not actually giving any additional damage boost to the attacks themselves. It's just every potential you pick up gives a scaling 20% damage increase to your character itself. That damage bonus is one of those things that does not affect your tactic damage. So even though I don't necessarily need any more potentials for, like, my character moves, I'm set on those, and I'm set on all of my damaging options for potentials. Just picking up potentials in general makes my character much stronger as the run scales on. And in Transcendence, you need all of the damage scaling you can get, pretty much. You can look at Arakune's health bar right now, and he's already up to 300,000 HP. And we still have 2 more areas left to go after this. The other really big issue for Transcendence, aside from taking a lot of chip damage and not being able to heal it back, I think the other main difficulty comes from clearing out the bosses in time with the timer settings. Especially once they start to scale really high in HP like these last ones will. So I don't need any more ice upgrades. Getting the legacy icicles wouldn't really matter too much. Getting the Umbra to tier 3 would be okay, I guess. It's not really a huge deal, but it will help. I think I mentioned earlier in the run that S kind of has like a bonus secret scaling with the Dashing Shadows, but I didn't explain what it was. If you have the potential where S generates crests as she dashes around, and you have the Dashing Shadow upgrade, the Dashing Shadows will also spawn their own additional crests. This also works on Kokonoe. The shadows will generate some components if you have passives for components. I don't really care about either of these. I would rather see the dodging shadows, but it's not really that big of a deal. The dodging shadows can do some pretty funny stuff if you dodge an enemy in like a full group of normal enemies, and then just the whole screen is shadows. Actually, I think Shadow Kickback is actually a very good option here. I almost forgot that that also scales with the S potentials that I was talking about, the hidden scaling between the two of them. So now since the dashing shadows are dashing twice, they're also spawning 2 crests on their own. It's not something that's anything too game-breaking, but it is pretty decently powerful. So you can see there, if I dash, and then the shadow will dash itself and spawn anywhere between 1 to 2 crests on its own. It's a really cool hidden effect thing. And then I want to get the Umbra dashes to tier 3, because it'll give a chance to spawn 2 shadows at once instead of just 1, which both shadows will then spawn their own crests. These enemies can get a little bit tricky towards the end of the run if you're not just wiping them out very quickly. And even here, when I am wiping them out quickly, they're spread out enough that they are still able to get some attacks in. Ooh, that is actually perfect. We get it at gold rank as well. Multiple shadows is something that it gets much more useful at Ascended. A lot of the tactics don't scale that well with Ascensions, but some of the ones that are more chance-based, like that, or have like a size increase tied to the Ascensions, are usually pretty useful to get to gold rank. So now we should go just pretty wild with the crests on dashing and stuff. One thing I could be doing more often is using the SP skill. It has a big range for hitting enemies, but the damage it deals isn't really anything that high, which is fine because of how quickly it will start stacking up. You can see I'm already back up to 42 SP. I think here I just take the lightning orbs. None of these 3 really matter too much. I would probably want the durable ones more than anything, but grabbing the large ones aren't that big of a deal either. I don't really like the ones that change their orbit range, personally. I might honestly just sell this. None of these are really too useful. Black Hole could have been more useful towards the earlier parts of the run, but now it's not that important. But yeah, I don't really like the Lightning Orb upgrade that makes it where they upgrade, or what it does is it makes them orbit in a wider range, but it goes back and forth between close range and wide range. I'd rather just have it be the same consistent range, but it's not a bad upgrade or anything. It's just a matter of preference there. These enemies are something you really have to watch out for. Especially, I don't like that they placed them there on this stage layout in specific. Because with the extra enemy spawns and the extra attack rate, they can really just kind of zone you out of being able to approach them. Ooh, I don't really want this, but at the same time selling it is not worth it at all. This is a very good move as well, if you were looking for different types of S builds to go into than just the standard hit things. You can get a lot of iframes off of that, and then it has a pretty low MP cost too, once you get the potentials for it. The only reason I don't like it is that I accidentally input it way too often. Just because I'm dashing around a lot to activate the crests and kind of dash cancel my attacks. And then, if I accidentally have my... I play on controller, so if I accidentally have my left thumbstick pushed down slightly too far, it will easily use that input instead. I kind of wish they would just move that input to the action key. That way it would be consistent with... Gawain would be on the up action key, and then the other one would be on the down action key, instead of having it on dash, where it's easy to miss input. But that is also just a skill issue on my part. I don't need any more Umbra here. I also definitely don't need Toxin. We'll just see what this is. This isn't really ideal, but it's not the worst thing either, since I didn't need the other two options. I'll just spend my money here and then probably won't go into the shop at the end of this stage section. Ooh, Mordred is where things can get a little more crazy in terms of air attack reset stuff. Or, not necessarily just Mordred itself, but having the ability to use it in the air. I probably shouldn't have refreshed there, but I like refreshing just to see what the discount is. If I get a discount on something like a potential, or even like an HP or MP upgrade, I still feel like it's worth it. It's difficult to explain exactly how a lot of the S stuff works, because it's difficult to see just based off of watching. I think even if I put an input display on screen, it would still be a little bit hard to understand. A lot of her stuff comes from having very fast aerial attacks, and then having ways to cancel the aerial attacks into other stuff. Like, if I do an aerial attack into a dash, I can attack very quickly this way. If I do it at full speed, it looks like that. Compared to just trying to do her grounded attacks that are a little bit more slow, or just trying to do regular air attacks without any cancels. I've tried a couple times to make a video about animation canceling just as a generic thing, because it's really important in this game, but it's just something that's hard to explain. It's something that you more have to get a feel for yourself. And I think S is like a perfect character for that. S and Icy are they both benefit very highly from animation canceling stuff when it comes to dash canceling, and the two main ways to animation cancel in this game are dash and jump canceling, though a lot of things can just be canceled into other moves as well. Okay, this is a little bit of a problem. Let me try to heal. I said I was gonna try not to tank— oops. I didn't mean to dash in that direction either. Actually, let me just shut up and focus on the boss fight. Okay, we made it through there. I keep getting myself into bad situations during this video. I did it with the last gen video too, where I really need to just stop talking and focus on the boss fight, but I keep trying to explain what I'm trying to explain. So one thing that became difficult in that fight is that I don't have the invincibility for Gawain. Also, the Oread boss fight is a little bit difficult for S in specific because of the attack patterns where the butterflies across the top cross the top and the bottom of the screen. S is, if you look at her dashes, they actually go up a little bit, or they kind of dip up and down. So you have to dash very carefully when going between those. One easy way to get around it is by having the invincibility on Gawain and just doing that through it. I could have also used SP skill to get invincibility through that. That would have been a good idea. Now I have a difficult decision. I really need to try and heal somehow. If I perfect clear the MP room, I could heal. I could also die. I can burn through an exchange, because I probably won't be... or I definitely won't be full clearing this area anyways. So hopefully I can look into... Wow, I looked into a heal there. I can pick up a buff as well. And then... now it's a little bit less... oh, I can go into the event for free too now, actually. That is definitely not worth it. The 60 exchange points don't really matter a whole lot either. But now it is a little bit less of a danger for me to go into this room. I can still easily die from this HP, but I'm less likely to die from a single hit, at least. And honestly, my best bet might just be spamming the dash button throughout here. The dash button, like I said before, will do enough DPS to clear the room because of all the crest stuff. And then if I get the perfect clear, that's how I'm going to be able to get my healing. So that's probably the safest way of getting through the room. I can also try and focus on the ranged attacks from the down plus skill input. That's another kind of full playstyle you can go into with S, as well, if you don't like the more air attack heavy style or the attack style. You can play kind of a ranged build with S. She's a very, very flexible character overall. The crest potentials do kind of define her as a character, and they'll kind of make or break some of your runs if you get them or don't. But she can be pretty flexible in other ways too, especially after you get those. I kind of consider Ragna the same way. I kind of lump Ragna and Essen kind of the same category of characters that they don't really have bad potentials like some of the other characters do. Which, none of the potentials are really that bad, even when I say bad potentials. But it's just some characters are much more reliant on specific sets of potentials. Whereas Ragna and S are still very reliant on their passive stuff. But after that, they're flexible in what attacking moves they can go for, at least. The potential system is very, very good overall in this game. It's just that some characters are a lot more incentivized towards certain paths than others. But every character has plenty of viable builds that they can go into. think as long as I can perfect clear this room, which I probably shouldn't jinx myself. That was a lot of explosions. I was not too sure if I was going to get through that one. But anyways, I think now we've gotten enough healing. We'll go into one more exchange just because. We've gotten enough healing that I don't want to chance it again on taking damage in another room. That's unfortunate. That's okay. But yeah, I don't want to chance taking any more damage, and I don't want to run down the timer anymore. Susano's gonna have... I think it's around 1.5 million HP. It's a really high HP pool. So I need all the time on the timer I can get. And then I'm just not going to do commentary for this. I'm gonna actually focus up on it. Oh, this is where I really wish I had something like Ragna's Second Legacy for healing. But, like I said, I want to try not to win without it. Okay, we got it. I did not know if I was going to make it through that or not. You can see that even though I came in here with around 6 minutes left, the timer's already down to 2 minutes. And S is a pretty high DPS character as well. This definitely isn't the highest DPS tactic setup I could have, but it is a very high DPS tactic setup as well. The final boss for Susano on Transcendence, just in general, just has so much of an HP pool, it takes forever to kill him. It does make the fight a lot more tense, especially without being able to heal mid-battle with something like a Mixture or Ragna's Second Legacy, like I used to always do. I think it makes it a lot more exciting, at least for me to play. Hopefully it probably makes it more exciting for the viewers too, to have a close call like that. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. If you have an idea of who you want to see for 100 Transcendence next, let me know and I'll try to play whoever's the most popular. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.